What's up, guys? So, before we get started, I'm going to let you guys know that I'm going to break down the episode a little bit, kind of talking about how these characters acted and stuff in the episode, but I'm going to get pretty technical with animation and sort of what this episode did versus what the last season was like and some little things like that. But, yeah, apart from that, let's just get into the episode and start the review. So this episode's obviously going to pick up right where we left off with Garo facing off against all these different Class A heroes, and he is definitely not doing too well. So he's definitely kind of right on the ragged edge of like his limit. But every single time we see him kind of at his limit, he manages to come back. In fact, he was going to rest. Obviously, in the last episode he was resting, but we end up getting this sort of, well, he's forced into having to fight because, well, everybody found him, even though he was at his limit after Saitama kicked him through a wall. But he figures out their pattern. Pretty quickly, he figures out their pattern. He knows how they move, and he starts kind of coming back and winning the fight. And he takes out everyone. He sees them as sort of steps to getting up to the next level. And there's something I'm kind of confused about, but maybe we'll find out more in the later episode, or, well, the next episode, I guess, because it's the finale. Maybe we'll find out. We'll see. But he figures out everyone's pattern. He figures out how the arrows are going to be fired. He figures out how the chain's going to be thrown. He gets the chain blade from Chain Toad, I think was his name. He breaks the string that was that the smiley face dude was throwing the ball around with. He takes out like half the team in no time and takes out most of the other half in, again, no time at all. It's crazy because he is able to piece together and figure out people's movements and their fight styles in no time flat. And by the time he figures their fight styles out, it's over. He uses his knowledge of their fighting ability against them to defeat them, which he actually does against Genos later in an episode, or in this episode, he uses it against Genos after learning how his fight with Watchdog Man went. But he figures it out. He figures out how each of them fights. He takes out each of them. We have a pretty interesting little moment with one of the heroes where he was clearly one of Fubuki's sidekick kind of like gang guys, and he left them because he wanted to become his own hero, exceed his limits because of encouragement that he received from Saitama. Because Saitama said if you have time to break down, you have the energy to break down, you have the energy to move forward. And so he kind of took that to heart, and that's what he's trying to do, though Garo pretty handily put him in his place after the guy threw rocks at him, after he grabbed Garo by the bandages. Garo just annihilated this dude. But he was able to dial out and call for S-Class backup, which comes later in the form of Genos. But the thing is, we see a lot of Garo's kind of, he doesn't care about the ranks. And in fact, most heroes don't really care about the ranks. If you see them fighting, they just want to, at this point, fight to survive because they're facing off against Garo. But Garo figures out that Death Gatling is very obsessed with his position as a hero, his ranking, trying to essentially make a name for himself by defeating Garo and proving that A heroes can be as good or as capable as S heroes. But here's the problem. By him fixating so much on ranking and trying to prove that A heroes can be just as awesome or as powerful or as meaningful as S heroes, he lets that blind him in the same way that he feels, or at least seems to feel, like S heroes are blinded by their fame. So he completely forgets the fact that he should be focusing on letting justice prevail, which he says, but keeps bringing up the fact that he's like, I'm an A-class hero, and you know, forget these S heroes. The ranking means that we, you know, have a hierarchy and blah, blah, blah. That makes no sense to me. And Garo even says, you're the only one caring about rank. So it's kind of interesting with the way Garo doesn't care about ranking and will pick apart these heroes no matter what their rank because he wants to step over them or step up the staircase of heroes to get to his end goal of the monster being victorious, which, during this fight, the monster is victorious. But not only is the monster victorious, I always make the comment with Garo that he is very human, very human and relatable to a lot of things because he understands the drive and the passion for some of these monsters that want to win. They want to win, and they have their ulterior motives, their goals, and he understands those, while other people only want to see the hero win. And it's a very human characteristic that makes him somewhat relatable. And in this, the one person who he has ever actually really spoken with in a way that is not a threatening demeanor is this child, who he defends from Death Gatling's strongest attack, which was really cool because he also used that as an opportunity to prove that firearms had no effect on him, which was pretty funny to see. And the kid is just horrified because all he sees is Garo, all battered and beaten up, and just this power emanating from him. And he sees all of these heroes who he has idolized, and he knows well enough that he is the guidebook, and they've all been defeated by this one man. So he is horrified, and he runs away. And so Garo just kind of has to accept that, and then Genos drops in. And we see that Genos really just kind of thinks of Garo as a small fry, which sets him off, because Genos holds his own, or rather Garo holds his own against Genos, but he is definitely somewhat outmatched, or at least it seems like it to a certain point. And this is sort of where I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen next, because it seems like in Garo's pursuit of becoming a monster, he is actually becoming more and more like a monster. His hair is now orange, which he was scratching his head, so I'm wondering if that's like the blood staining his white hair orange. I'm not sure. His eye turned red. He's got sharp teeth by the end, or at least they kind of made it look like he had fangs on the last episode, or the last scene of the episode. So in the previous episodes, rather, and then this season as well, we've seen that people obsessed with certain things become monsters of that certain thing. Guy obsessed with lizards becomes a lizard monster. Guy obsessed with a car becomes a car monster. It's this running theme, and it seems like with Garo just being obsessed with becoming a monster, it would make sense in the theming of this world that he would eventually become a monster without having to eat the monster cell. And speaking of monster cell, the Monster Association shows up to help Garo, but that doesn't work out too well for them because most of them get destroyed. Actually, all the ones we've seen so far get destroyed by either Bang, Genos, or Bang's older brother, who I forget his name. But this is enough to make Genos think that Garo has ties with the Monster Association, which of course we know he doesn't, but doesn't paint a good picture for Garo in Genos' mind. Then Silverfang shows up and kicks Garo away from Genos, and boy, we're going to have a payoff fight, I'm sure, because considering we're coming up on the last episode, there's probably going to be a big fight between Garo and Bang, and this is where we see, I don't know exactly what's happening with Garo. He seems to be becoming a monster, but this is where we see him diving after Bang, ready to attack him. So maybe that'll happen. I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but God, I hope it happens, because that would be really cool. Because the animation in this episode, if they do similar animation to in next episode to what we had in this episode, it's going to be good. And I guess that actually transitions me over well to what I liked and what I was going to talk about with the animation in this episode versus previous episodes and in episodes previously in the last season. So let's talk about that now. So I'm going to get pretty technical, but here's how a lot of this kind of animation stuff works with doing scenes like this. So this scene, for example, we see Genos standing up very quickly, and when he's standing there turning his head, we see rocks going by his face. This is a scene that is animated in what's called animation by twos. So every other frame, there's animated movement, meaning that the one frame is the movement, second frame is a still image, next frame, new movement. So by doing that, it's a way of saving a bit of work while still keeping a smooth-looking animation. That means that the actual frame rate for these videos is 15 frames per second, even though the video is being played back in 30 frames per second. If you want more detail on how animation like that works, you should check out a video talking about Into the Spider-Verse, because that entire movie was animated on twos in the same way that 2D hand-drawn art is animated. Now, that's actually pretty common in the anime industry and in a lot of animation studios, and in fact, this episode is a perfect example of a pretty good fight scene. In fact, I will even say a really good fight scene done in animation by twos, We see a lot of really quick moving scenes that are still fairly smooth, but when you actually go frame by frame, it's animated every other frame. And in this kind of fight scene, this actually works pretty well, especially considering that our sort of expectation has been still image animation. Still image animation is essentially like what Fairy Tail does, where like a character gets hit and all they do is take one image and just kind of move them and slowly scale them away. That's still image animation. So you still have some movement, but it's done in a way where they don't have to go and animate a bunch of fluid movements. They just have to animate a still image moving somewhere. That's it. And it's more commonly seen in things, like I said, Fairy Tail, or in like walking animations where they only have to change the mouth movements, the eye movements, and then just bob them up and down as they walk. Considering a lot of this season has been mostly still image animation and the occasional movement like walking, it kind of seemed really impressive to see them animate a fight scene like this, and I was very happy with it. Now, like I said earlier, I don't like comparing the last season to the new season, but why I like this, but why the previous season worked better, is because season 2, this scene, or this fight in particular, everything was animated on 2s. Madhouse went to the effort in season 1. Let's use the Genos versus Saitama fight, for example. Madhouse went to the trouble and effort to animate on 1s. Animating on 1s is exactly how it sounds. 30 frames per second, every frame is a different frame. Every frame has a bit of movement in it. This just gives the result of a much smoother overall feel for the show, a smoother overall feel for the moment, the scene, and it makes it feel more natural and gives you this idea of very fast-paced, smooth action. So what am I getting at with this? Well, for the expectations set for this season, this fight is easily the best fight that we have had in this season thus far, with the best animation from this entire season, period. But people are still going to complain if they compare it to season 1. And I have, at this point, pretty much put this off as its own season. It is its own season, it's its own little bit of animation. I've set my standards for the studio animating it, and I'm happy with it. I love this episode. It is so awesome. But it's very easy to make yourself kind of not like it if you compare it directly to the previous season. And so I guess the moral of the story with this is things are getting really good. If they had animated like this from the start, I think it would have still been very appropriate, very, very well accepted, very good. But they didn't. And that's kind of my problem. We now get really good animation, followed by, hopefully more good animation, but previously it was bad animation. So that's where the comparisons come in. I love the first season, and I'm loving these last 3 episodes. Hopefully the third episode, the episode 12 will be good. But so far, episode 10 and 11 are amazing. But if you set your standards to what they've done previously because of how much work Madhouse put into animating on 1s, fluid fight scenes, incredible animation, that just ruins it for you. So enjoy this for what it is. Hopefully the last episode will be incredible. I'm hoping the season finale has a good payoff. And otherwise, just enjoy the show, man. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this review/breakdown. I really wanted to get into some of the technical bits of animation because I really figured that this would be a perfect opportunity to kind of explain what set this apart or made it feel different from season 1 and why a lot of people probably noticed it more and why this now feels great-ish. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Check out some of the links in the description. I sell merch like this stuff if you want a shirt. I'm always down for that. It's always fun to see people buying shirts, or at least I think it is because nobody's bought one yet. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure to be there and have a good one.